So that third party then tax on 10, 12% interest.
12% by statute.
12% interest.
Plus attorney's
on that,
fees.
plus the attorney fees. So now that county tax bill becomes this much larger. Okay? And so then when there's not enough money to pay everybody out of the sale, it's done on a prorated basis. So then everybody gets a percentage. The city of Erlanger ended up with $5,400 out of the property on Jacqueline Drive. It was sold for $28,000. We ended up with $54,000. I'm not sure the exact number of it was over $10,000 that we had. And so I'm not even sure, you know, Jennifer, even on the back taxes on what that was. That was probably mostly back taxes.
Well, what's it cost, Jack, to file the foreclosure on it like you're talking about doing? I mean, is it?
You know, total fees cost the whole 9 yards. If we were to initiate the foreclosure, you know, you're looking at just pure costs, service fees, filing fees, things like that, in the $300 to $400 range. Legal fees are probably in the $1,000 range on top of that. So you're looking $1,500 for a pretty typical foreclosure would be the going rate in this market.
So if you didn't get your money back, you're not out that much on the foreclosure. I mean, if it goes down the list in order who gets paid and there's not enough, I mean.
Yeah, but in most of these cases, there's going to be delinquent taxes.
Oh, sure.
So a lot of those fees and costs are going to get linked to those delinquent taxes, and you're going to get paid.
So, I mean, for $1,500 for a foreclosure.
Yeah, I mean, that's a ballpark.
That's what, I mean, 2,000, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think the question that I heard was you're looking for council to make a recommendation, but I guess my question is, do the ordinance as they exist today prevent that from going forward?
Yeah, so there's a couple issues at play here, okay? So currently, you have really two issues going on. You have delinquent taxes, which are their own bucket. And we absolutely, unequivocally, by statute, can foreclose on delinquent taxes after you go through a certain process, okay? I mean, you got to give notice, you got to wait a certain period of time, they have to be delinquent a certain amount of days. Once you go through that process.
So that's an administrative process.
That's right.
Else the council needs to do.
That's right, nothing council has to do. We could absolutely foreclose on delinquent taxes by current statute, okay? No question about it. So council could make a recommendation to the administration that when taxes are 2 years delinquent, 18 months delinquent, whatever it is, you know, we can use that as a bright line rule, and we can then foreclose on those delinquent taxes. The second issue is a different issue. The second issue is foreclosing on liens established by our nuisance ordinance, okay? It's a little different issue. And if you look at our nuisance ordinance right now, and, you know, Mark has touched on it, I know code enforcement's touched on it, and we broadly have talked about this issue. The current nuisance ordinance is predominantly a safety nuisance ordinance, okay? It's not an aesthetics nuisance ordinance. It's a...
Cars on blocks, that kind of thing?
Right, well, that's a safety issue. So most of the teeth of this nuisance ordinance relies on either the structure being unsafe for human habitation or that it's dangerous or injurious to the health and safety of occupants of neighboring structures or residents of the city. So the current nuisance ordinance really doesn't address the issue if you put a bunch of pink flamingos in your yard, or the house paint is purple and polka dot, or, you know, maybe even the paint is flaking off. I mean, there is some reference to the state building code, there is some reference to the International Property Maintenance Code, but generally those don't get into a lot of details. When we talked about it yesterday here at the city building, the mayor informed us that he has multicolored shingles on his roof. So...
It's the way they're supposed to look. I mean, it's a 30-year dimensional shingle, but I'm just saying, they're not all the same color.
That's the way you punish it.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to buy the
When you buy separate bundles.
But, well, I mean, you know.
What's your HOA say about that one?
Well, you know,
He is a builder, so he probably does just sort of package things off of other sites,
All
right?
them are left over from
Whatever's
another
left
house.
over, that's right.
I bring that up because that is certainly more of an aesthetic thing, okay? I mean, if you go down into Union, you can see that there's a lot of rules and regulations that all the brick has to be the same color. I always think the city of aesthetics, if anyone's been to Dublin, Ohio, has anyone gone to the Memorial Golf Tournament up in Dublin, Ohio and driven through there? I haven't looked at their ordinances, but every single building is brown brick. The exact same color brown brick. So obviously they have ordinances that deal with aesthetics. Erlanger doesn't. Ours is a safety-based ordinance. We can tweak that. If we want to get into aesthetic issues, we certainly can tailor this to get more into aesthetic issues.
He's not busy enough as it is.
Let me finish, and then the Mayor will give you an opportunity to speak. The third bucket, which I think is the most important bucket here, which again has been talked about, is the change in the law on July 15th, which gives a lot more power to cities and counties to go after blighted property. And this all came about out of Louisville. If anyone's been to Louisville recently, they have a lot of blighted property on the west side. All these old towns, Covington, Louisville, you know, they have older neighborhoods that are becoming a big issue. And it extended, and they decided this was actually an ordinance that was passed in Louisville to deal with it. They realized that it may or may not be completely legal, so they convinced the legislature there in Louisville to turn it into a statute. Representative Simpson got involved to tweak it a little bit to also help Covington and Northern Kentucky. The end result is we have a new blighted law statute. And it's important because the term blighted is a term of art. And what I mean by a term of art is that has a specific definition. So all of these things when we talk about, well, we have now a new set of laws to dispose of blighted property. We can now do this if it's blighted property. It's important that we know what that definition of blighted property is. So bear with me because it's actually kind of a long definition, but I think it's important for council to understand what the true definition of blighted per the Kentucky legislature is. It is a structure that is a vacant or unimproved lot or parcel. So that's the first thing that's important. It's got to be a vacant property or an unimproved parcel. So if there's somebody habiting it, it's not going to fall under the blighted statute. It might fall under something else, but it's got to be vacant property or unimproved lot, which either one, because of the physical condition or use, is regarded as a public nuisance at common law or has been declared a public nuisance in accordance with the housing, building, blah, 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 related codes. So if they have violated our nuisance ordinances and it was declared a public nuisance, which, because of physical condition, use, or occupancy, is considered an attractive nuisance to children, including but not limited to abandoned wells, shafts, basements, excavations, and unsafe fences or structures, or which, because it is dilapidated, unsanitary, unsafe, vermin-infested, or lacking the facilities and equipment required by the housing or nuisance code of the local government in which it is located, is unfit for habitation by humans, or which is a fire hazard, or which does not have utilities, plumbing, heating, sewage, or other facilities, or which by reason of neglect or maintenance has become a place for accumulation of trash and debris or a haven for rodents or other vermin, or, I think this is an important one, which has been tax delinquent for a period of at least 3 years, or which has not been brought into compliance with the housing, building, plumbing, electrical, fire, nuisance code of the local government within the time constraints placed upon the owner by the appropriate code enforcement agency. So it's a fairly broad definition, but to qualify, it's got to be a problem property, right? I mean, this is for the repeat offenders. This is for the cases like probably have brought a lot of us to the attention. So if it is blighted property, and this council wants to move forward with establishing an ordinance as it relates to blighted property, we've got to do a couple things. The statute requires us to establish a vacant property review commission. so almost like a committee, a vacant property review commission, and that review commission has got to determine that the property meets the definition of blighted. The mayor picks that committee by statute, and the legislative body approves the mayor's selections. Now, the ordinance has to decide the amount of people that serve on that committee and what the guidelines are that they follow as it relates to blighted. So we can add conditions to that list. We cannot take away. So we cannot make the definition of blighted easier. We could make the definition of blighted harder. The other important thing is that no officer or employee of the city of Erlanger, whose duties include enforcement of housing, building, plumbing, fire, nuisance, or related codes, shall be appointed to the commission.
Okay,
Okay? So basically, it's got to be outside people.
right. Like our other boards are.
That's exactly right. Because I think it would be hard to argue that council does not fit that role, because arguably, to some extent, you guys are involved in the enforcement.
Right.
Okay? Obviously, Mark cannot be involved. Code enforcement cannot be involved.
Makes sense.
Yeah, neither Mr. Wickman or myself can be involved. So it's a group of citizens, business owners, or whatnot that make that determination. Now, all this means is once a property has been declared blighted by that commission, the city, through council, can then go forward with eminent domain. But that's not an easy process. And what we have to understand is through eminent domain, you know, we can't just take the property, right? That's unconstitutional. You can't just have a government taking. We have to compensate them fair market value for that property. So we would have to go through a legal proceeding of eminent domain. That property owner would have the right through the circuit court to argue and litigate whether we met all the standards for blighted property. And at the end, we would then receive a judgment and say, yes, City of Erlanger, you've met that burden. The property is yours. Well, there then would be a second phase. Quite frankly, my law partner is in a trial this week over in Campbell County on this very issue, but there's a second phase that relates to what the value of that property would be. So that property owner is going to put on his expert, he's going to put on a real estate appraisal, and the city then is going to have to write a check for whatever the value of the property is.
Yeah.
So while this law does give us another weapon, again, I think it's the broader issue that Mark and the mayor have brought up. How far does this council want to go? Because we could, on a $10,000 eminent domain property, we could be in it for 15 to 20 grand for the right to tear down a property. Now, maybe that's what we want to do. But I think it's important for council to understand it's a fairly cumbersome process.
You might only need one or two examples of that.
Now, the final part of it, and then I will shut up. And first, I flippantly said that the Wickman firm was involved in code enforcement. I obviously, behind the scenes, am working on a lot of this stuff. It's just, they're the ones who are out there placing the liens and dealing with the foreclosures, because that was the role that they're involved in. The third part, though, is another change to the law as it relates to blighted properties, and this could become sort of the next phase. So we now have gotten this property through a circuit court, through an eminent domain procedure. Now what do we do with it? So the legislature realized, hey, now these people are going to have these properties that might not be worth anything. It might be unfair to saddle them with the normal statute, 82083, which requires surplus property, and for them to go through the normal surplus property hoops. Because right now, if the city owns real estate, okay, you have the option to either transfer it to a government agency, you can sell it at public auction, you can sell it on a website, you can sell it by sealed bids. Well, the new prong is, if it's been declared blighted property, you can sell it for the appraised value or more, just outright to anybody, so long as they're not an employee of the city or an employee of city council. So once you've gone through this eminent domain process, you can outright sell it. So let's think about that. How does this all tie together? Well, how it ties together is, and how Louisville is dealing with this issue, is they're working with private businesses. They're working with developers. And developers are already making commitments to properties X, Y, and Z, and they're going to use now this new power of eminent domain, and they already have a buyer lined up. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's becoming more of a partnership with developers, so that in the case of the city of Louisville, they're not out millions and millions of dollars to get rid of 100 properties.
For that whole process, why wouldn't you just foreclose?
If they owe taxes?
Yeah, and all that. I mean, it seems
Absolutely.
a lot easier than what you just went through.
Well, because there is a difference. They could write a check to the city for the amount of the taxes, and they get out from underneath the foreclosure. With the eminent domain process, they're not going to get out from underneath it.
So all that you talked about, what kind of time frame would it, if you know, from the start to the end of it all, take?
Well, this
I
is,
know it's new, or
I was going to say this is the wrong answer, but nobody's tested this law yet, right? And we know that Jefferson County is going to be launching them, but you know, as Randy can attest, you know, you got Jefferson County and then you got the rest of the state. So just because Louisville's going to be doing something, the courts up here aren't necessarily going to follow. I think Covington's going to be the test case for us relatively soon. I think we're going to know in Kenton County by December, January, how this kind of plows through the courts. Your normal eminent domain process is very similar to a foreclosure. It's going to take 180 days to get through the courts.
I just want to have an
Yeah.
idea of what,
But you got to fast track it to do that.
right.
Yeah, go ahead, JD.
Anybody that's been involved with foreclosures or collections or anything knows that one of the biggest stopping points of a foreclosure is them filing bankruptcy. And that stalls it, whether they get to a 13, convert to a 7, could stall it for years. Now, will that also stop the eminent domain?
It would, and you would have to then go to the bankruptcy court and file relief from stay. So that would add to the process, but you wouldn't be held up forever. The way that process works, if you're not familiar, is you just literally go to the bankruptcy court, you convince the trustee that there's no value in the real estate, they then release their interest to that property, and you're now back in the state court proceeding.
Okay, I just wanted to ask
It probably adds 60 to 90 days to the process.
that.
So,
I still think it's better.
yeah, I did too, but, you know, you were wanting some information from us, Mark, to how to speed things up, but I don't think anything that we do is gonna speed anything up.
Well, I think it's, the point that I think we need some guidance on is when in fact, and if it's foreclosure, that's fine.
Right.
But when in fact do we do that?
Right.
And this council, historically, and the city has never taken that stance. And I would venture to say that these two houses that we just did probably are the first ones that we've done in years. I asked David about it, and David said he can only remember a couple other ones that, you know, over the 35 years that he's been here and the 30 years I've been here that we've actually foreclosed on.
Right.
So, you know, we've not taken that aggressive stance.
The city of Erlanger to grow and to get people moving here, we have got to take care of these situations.
Can I ask these, I mean, you guys do it every day. What do you think? 6 months or, I mean?
I think you should go with a dollar amount, probably myself. How you point out our process, the first fence, second fence, third fence. And if it was me saying it, I would say probably, once you get first fence and you get no response, just like you don't do things, maybe cutting grass or whatever.
Right.
And especially in empty houses, that we know are in that process, we probably do. The second fence, boom, we go cutting, we got it. Third fence, we do it. We're up with probably with those three fences, there's 2 people on the house. We could be up to $1,500, $2,000, $2,500 real easy. I think the third fence, we get to the third fence, I think.
You think it's time to go? You're not gonna get any cooperation anyway?
We pull the trigger. That makes sense.
Right, that's what
Yeah.
yeah, I'm good with that.
I kind of see there could be 3 ways of determining that. You could go by number of offenses. You could go by the amount. You know, you set an amount that once you hit a certain amount. Or you could also say, which probably would be more fair, would be a percentage of the value of the property. You know, if you have $2,000 in 3 offenses on a $500,000 property, it may not necessarily, yeah, does that make sense? Or,
You could do.
Yeah, but if the property's vacant,
Third offense or $3,000 in fines, whichever
Either
comes
one
first
comes
for
first.
those.
there we go, okay.
3 offenses or $3,000 in fines, you go for it, pull the trigger.
Either one comes first. Hey, Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, that's fine.
What about on delinquent taxes?
Yeah, so the delinquent taxes is a different one. So, you know, we had suggested before going that second, as a matter of fact, it came from Jennifer, when Jennifer and I talked, because Jennifer collects all the taxes. You know, once that second letter goes out for that second year of delinquency, and the way that works is, you know, once they become delinquent, Jennifer sends 2 letters, then in fact it goes to the attorney and they send another one, and then I think they send a second one. So there's 4 that get sent notifying people these taxes are delinquent. But if that happens second year, like I said, you're already into probably April of the next year. So you've got those 2 years plus that other 4 months. So, you know, what we had thought was do it 2 years.
We have to wait 2 years? Or?
No, you don't have to. You don't have to. But historically, we've never done that. We've never gone after that. We've got a, you know, there's a very low amount. However, if you look at some of these houses that are on here that have those huge amounts, almost every one of those have delinquent taxes along with that.
I think 1 year.
I'd give them a year.
I'll give a year. I mean, some people have some problems, so if they can't get straightened up in a year,
They're not gonna get straight.
they're not gonna get straightened up.
So are we saying somebody that for 1 year is, they haven't paid their 2015 taxes or 2014 taxes?
What are you saying? Yeah, I'm,
I know that's what
Yeah,
I'm trying to understand
right.
what the 1 year is.
right. So it is,
I'd say 1 year from the date that they're due.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly
that
12
makes
months
1
from the
year
date they're
behind.
due. If they don't pay,
You're
pull
1
the
year,
trigger.
yeah, you're 1 year behind already.
They're not gonna they're not gonna
Grace
regroup.
periods on that.
Is that going to be enforced?
You pay them and get a discount, wait all the way up until December when they're actually doing the thing.
Well, then, a year from December.
Mr. Biaux?
Question for, the JJ team. What percent of this, what percent is, these are the properties that you listed. Of all the properties in Erlanger, what percent is this? Is this like 1%?
But that's not the whole list.
Huh?
That's what she's saying. What? This is just the bad.
These are just the bad.
and that didn't come from you. That didn't come from you.
Yeah, that came from.
Okay, so that is just what is in the attorney's office, and they have reported to us. That didn't come from codes enforcement.
Okay, but this is still a really small percent.
That's a really small percentage.
There are also things you keep track of. Is if you go to a property, the homeowner's outside, you stop and say, hey, look, the grass is getting kind of big and the car in the driveway's got a flat tire, we're coming back in a week, you come back, grass has been cut, the tire's been fixed, we never issued a ticket, we still put that into the computer because we recall that. So there's a number of those that you have also.
We will get those exact numbers. We could sit here all, yeah, I'll get those numbers and I will send them out to you by the end of the week.
So I got a question for
To
you
every
guys,
member.
since I had the floor for a couple of seconds. Is there a number assigned to that new law yet? I can look it up and read it.
Sure.
I didn't know if it was assigned yet or if it was.
Yep, you can Google it. It's all under KRS 99.700. So 99.700 is the first part of it, and you can just keep going through all the different provisions.
And when KLC came up, and I know not many people were here and put on the presentation about the legislative, I guess, recap of what happened at the session, you know, I put a booklet in everybody's mailbox that talked about all the new things, and this one is one of them that's in that. So if you still got that booklet, it kind of summarizes the whole thing, so.
Mrs. Kyle, did you?
Yeah, I've had a question about, is there a difference between commercial property and residential? My question is, like Florence, with the motel that they were having problems with, it wasn't vacant, but they condemned it.
They used the health department and everything else to do that. So there were a whole lot of other issues. And that,
But if we would have the health department condemn a or whatever they do, the health department, they come out and they put a sticker on your house.
That's tough here in Kenton County.
Would we be able to condemn then? I mean,
Yeah, but that's really tough here in Kenton County, and that's not a slam against the health department. That's just, that's
tough
tough.
to do.
That's tough.
It sounds like no matter what we do, we still have a lot of time
John?
involved, you know?
And you fall.
It's okay. Yeah,
Changes.
he's okay.
Oh, jeez. If he was tired of sitting, he should have just
Mr.
listened.
Viox?
I think that you need to keep in mind, I know we've gotten away from it, but Mark brought it up earlier. John and David and I were on the Erlanger Housing Corporation for a while. And here's what you've got to understand, that no matter how accelerated you do this, it is going to cost the city money. And here's the reason, because the blighted properties usually are in neighborhoods that aren't the greatest neighborhoods in town. And I'll just put it that way. Therefore, when you acquire the property, whatever you've got into it to acquire it, by the time you demo it and try to sell it, the value of an infill lot in that particular neighborhood is not going to be in great demand unless you're doing urban renewal where you're taking down a whole bunch of them, stuff and opening up. So David's got some lots right now we're trying to sell, and I'm sure the value of those lots are dependent on the neighborhood that the lots are in and the kind of money we've got invested in them. We're not going to get any money back out of them. It's going to cost the city the money before it's all done. But you got to understand that you're going to have to invest in this program and come up with a way to accelerate it to solve it. But you're not going to get out of it with, the properties are not going to carry the load. Yeah. I don't think.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. I know Mr. Francis has been very patient, and before we come to any kind of final determination, I'd like to see if you'd like to weigh in on this.
First of all, thanks for letting me speak again and for letting me make some observations about your process. A couple of things. I've been listening obviously for several weeks now, and I don't know, I'm a simple kind of guy. The process isn't working. You change it. It's not working. When you talk to me about the complexity of solving the problem, I would simply say to you, what is the cost of not solving the problem? Because to live here is, okay, let's just make the bad side of town the good side of town, and let's just, you think anybody's going to live here? No. I lived in Brentwood, Tennessee for 12 years. You couldn't find a lot in Brentwood, Tennessee. Why? And all of you had to have brick. You had to have 1 acre lots. The expectation wasn't lower, it was higher. I know the socioeconomic is different here, but it's the will of the people who determine what you ultimately will do. I want to solve one question that keeps coming up every time I'm here, and that you misconstrue what I say for a matter of aesthetics and taste. No. If it was aesthetics and taste, the grandmother that used to live across the street in the ghost house that I've been talking about, the grandmother whose 2 grandkids used to get out on the road, the grandmother who never mowed her grass, the grandmother who did not do lots of things I liked, as well as the speckled roof that she had. How many times did I call the police or anybody about those? 0. My issue, and it is stated crystal clear in this new statute, which I've been reading. If you want to get glazed over, you read it before you get really glazed over. It says very clearly, blighted or deteriorated property means any vacant structure. That's the first line.
Or partial.
Yeah, it goes further, but there it is. I am not talking about taste. I am not talking about aesthetics. I'm talking about purpose. The purpose of a house is what? To house people. When I was coming to the meeting tonight, there was a car that lost its purpose in the street. And 2 of the officers were pushing it up the street. They didn't leave the meeting and I'm quoted in the paper along with other city officials that it really is an aesthetics issue. I just can't think it is not an aesthetics issue.
You mean the newspaper misquoted you?
No, it's where you, I guess,
Oh,
because
okay.
that's where the aesthetics came from.
Oh,
Yeah, absolutely. And then for
they always misquote me.
to say that he was quoted to say he's never seen that street look better. Oh my gosh, I've been here 15 years. I've walked that street. I know that street like the back of my hand. And I will tell you, in my 15 years, there's never been 4 houses that were empty. And I would bet on that.
Can I say something since you brought my name up? I want to say this because you keep talking about vacant houses. Unless we own that house, we can't make anybody live in that house. So that's the question.
This new ASR thing says
Right.
we can do something.
Well, like I said, if we own the house, but we're going to have to commit to doing that. So that's that whole thing coming back to, we have a lot of vacant properties, sir, and I would agree with that 100%. I've got them on my street, okay? I've been here over 30 years, okay? So I live here. I understand that. And that whole issue is if we don't own it, we can't make somebody live in it. And making them upkeep it is something else, but vacant is to some hard.
You can't have unoccupied property in other cities. And related to what the attorney was saying a moment ago, so the company is already selling properties to landlords. They're already doing that.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
I've walked through that
That's right.
process with them. I know that system. I'm a renter in Covington. I know the system very, very well there. And they're doing some things. But to say that I keep hearing that the overwhelming complexity of the problem cannot be solved, and I don't believe that.
I don't think any of us believe that.
I don't-
I mean, I certainly appreciate you coming and you know, and speaking freely and you know, holding our feet to the fire. That's the process is working. And I mean, I think you'd appreciate that, you know, for over the last hour, we've been talking about trying to solve a problem that you've brought to us, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen with a snap of our fingers, and this is going to be a step for us, you know. So we're
I want to see steps.
Yeah.
I don't know what the gentleman across the street, more than I obviously, has done, but he sent one worker over twice. She's worked 2 hours. The reason I know that, my wife, she's not a school teacher, so she's in the yard working all the time. And that's what we've done. 2 hours, 2 times, and that's it. My concern, back to Mr. Fields, and I understand, we've been here a long time, and I have too, is when I hear that we can't do anything because people don't live in it, what you're telling me is that the purpose of the house is to be lived into. Its very purpose is to house people. But we have no recourse. Yet the new state statute says blighted or deteriorated property means any vacant structure. That means we can't go after them.
Yes.
Okay.
The new law says that, right?
But
And until now, I've not heard anybody say to me, and it just doesn't matter, it's a matter
The
of.
law
what it
didn't
takes.
exist before, Mr. Francis.
I'm sorry.
The law don't come in
Not
effect till July
exist
15th.
before.
But
You can't compare, I'm sorry, sir. I think the world of you, okay? And I understand your situation, and I appreciate your situation. I live on Graves Avenue. I have a beautiful home. I don't know what I would do if that was across from me. However, it was across from you when you bought your home.
No, it's not been empty till a little lady died.
No. I'm talking about all of those
I'm
little
not complaining
houses.
about all that. Notice my.
Please, I have an opportunity to speak to you. Sure. We do not have the money that Covington has. We've got a nice nest egg, because we worked hard to save it. We use it very frugally. The new mayor is trying very hard to lower our taxes. Now, if we go out and we start sucking up all these blighted homes like you want us to, we're gonna be broke, sir, real soon.
So is that what you interpreted me saying, to go over and suck up all the blight? No, ma'am, I'm saying one thing, that is unoccupied homes. Unoccupied.
But
That's the start.
We don't own them, sir.
Are you addressing their being unoccupied?
Mr. Gatlin, I got a question for you. This is, the blighted property it's vacant, but it has to meet one of those other conditions. So if
That's
it's
right.
kept home, maintained, no delinquent taxes, and it's unoccupied, there is nothing to be done.
That'd be correct.
Thank you.
The definition in the statute of an unblighted interior home is vacant.
That's not true, sir. That's not true.
That's the heading.
That's not true. It has, can you let, you can stand up there and shout and scream at us, but you don't like us to talk to you.
Absolutely, I'll stay here anytime you want.
All right. It's very clearly, that is the first requirement, and then it has to meet one of the other prongs. So it's vacant plus something else. Now, in all honesty, I haven't gone through all of these prongs to see if the property across the street from you would meet that definition or not, but it has to be more than vacant.
Well, but we don't vacant or
Which, but there's a semicolon there, and then then there's other provisions that are required to be attached to it.
Again, it's brand new. You look at
No, I understand.
I'm not an attorney. I'm a theologian, and I just know. And if I'm yelling at you, then take my passion as prophetic, not as I'm so weary of it. Because, folks, this isn't new to me. This is 4 years old. So please, this is
You should
Yeah.
go into politics. You would be perfect.
Mr. Francis, yeah, and part of why we were bringing it up this evening is because it is new, and it's new to new to us as well. So, I mean, that's what we're kind of trying to say, hey, look, there's something out there that exists that can help us. So,
That's what I was getting ready to say, but the thing don't come into effect till July 15th. So what Patty was saying is, we couldn't do anything. Our hands are tied. We can't go out and foreclose on every damn vacant property in Erlanger and buy it, because we don't have the money. And then we don't have the opportunity to kind of get rid of it. So until July 15th, we can't do any of this stuff. So
Well-
let's watch and see what Covington does on their first one, and then we can follow in step.
But like Mr. Francis is saying, I know he's not expecting us to make, take immediate action, but he's saying some of this stuff has existed for years.
I know.
And I think we've all got,
30 days down the road right now.
no, I realize, yeah.
It's something new to us. So
But
now we
there's-
got something to go on.
There's more to it than just the blighted,
I understand.
and that's why I brought it,
Well, I'm
the
sure Jack's gonna keep
delinquent
file for me
taxes,
and let us know.
the code enforcement issues, I think there's 3 tiers to this, really.
Need from us, Mark, to
Well, that's what I was going to try to recap. You want to continue, or you done? Yeah, yeah.
No, and sir, I wasn't angry. I was wanting an opportunity to speak. You're a passionate man. I grew up in the Baptist faith, and I attended. You would be an enjoyable person to hear on a Sunday. You would keep people awake. And on the wooden pews that I grew up on as a kid, that was an important thing.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you continuing to come back. I know it takes a lot. It takes away from your personal life.
I'm gonna say one thing, because when I walked the street, and I do think it looks better. We got rid of all the rubbish and got some of the small repairs done that were across from you. I think we took care of the dog issue, because we told them not to let the dogs go over. So I do think we made some progress. But on the other side of it, the one house that you were here talking about the very first time you were here, that had the boarded up windows and all that house has all been redone now. And just happened when we walked down there that day, happened to find the owner of that property in the house working on it.
I've seen somebody.
Yeah. And you know why he told us that he bought it? Was because of your house. And I am not kidding. He said when I could buy this house for $40-some thousand and look across the street and see that house valued at almost 400, 300 and some whatever, he goes, that's why I bought this house. And then he said, I don't buy houses and rent houses. I buy houses to flip houses. I fix them up, sell them. He said, but I can't this one now, because now once I got in here and found out the foundation is so bad, I can't sell it. So he's going to now rent that house. And that's what he's going to do. So he's on our registry. We told him all about that stuff and did that stuff. But I just thought that was kind of unique that he said the whole reason he bought it was because of the big White House across the street. So, yeah. Yeah. That's not what I said.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Services are 8:45
Are
So-
you serving breakfast?
You have to feed this group breakfast. Okay, so direction for us going forward, we're gonna go third offense or $3,000, either one, right? Is that the direction we're gonna go?
Tommy?
Okay,
Good with that? I'm good for that.
so we can do that administratively inside. All right, so taxes, you said, what?
1 year.
You said 1 year, so that's a little,
That sounds stringent to me.
Yeah.
That sounds really stringent.
Does it, well, taking them 2.5 now. Did you say after everything?
no, our suggestion was was that 2 years, and then after that 4.
Could I make a
that fourth letter
recommendation?
went, yeah.
Maybe we would want to internally look at the amount of delinquencies at 12 months and 24 months to see the volume. The volume might be really, really high. Do you know
I think
approximately?
it goes down.
Well, that's fine, too.
It's a great idea.
Yeah,
But you know, just to look where where the mark is, where it makes financial sense to do it.
Might be worth just leaving it.
Yeah.
That's good.
But
Let's bring the data back so we can have that information. That way we're not making a rash decision
Right.
based on emotions tonight.
There you
'Cause
go.
they are running a little high.
Okay, so, but we're okay with the third offense or $3,000 with fines, right?
Then we'll get a little bit of data.
So I can review that, all those things, and then get with the Wickman firm to make sure that we move forward with all of those things. I didn't hear what she said.
Wants it tomorrow.
You want it tomorrow?
9 a.m.
I know you can do it.
And go to his,
Okay.
beach house.
No.
Crazy, isn't he? Yeah. All right. So we're gonna do that, and we'll get that report to you all before the end of this week, Mark and Daryl.
Let's
See, they're back there talking. Mark and Daryl, before the end of the week, we're gonna get that report about all the cases and those that we close by not issuing a citation, those other ones, so we can go back. How far do you want to go back, Mr. Meyer? What do you think? A year, 2 years, what?
I think the last year has been very important. I mean, that's we've seen.
Last 12 months?
I think the last 12 months
All
will
right.
be good.
So you all need to come and see me tomorrow, and we need to get in my office and run that report and try to figure that out. Oh, that's not, never mind, he's gonna be gone. Officer Jewett's going to the new blighted training that KLC's putting on in, Bowling Green tomorrow. That's right.
What about noise?
That's right.
Yeah, good timing.
Anything about noise?
So,
Okay, so for the next meeting, I think, on top of what Mr. Fields is saying, I'd like to take the steps then to start into the blighted property issue and create this vacant property review commission. We've already got one.
Before we create the commission, we've got to draft the ordinance.
We've got to draft the ordinance.
Yeah, but the ordinance is going to have to detail the parameters of what the commission's going to look like, who's going to be on it, not names, but whether it's,
How many people?
Right.
What type of people? So can I get some ideas from council? How many people you think would be good for this commission?
What do you think? Three.
Is there a requirement?
there's no specification other than they cannot be employees of any city official that deals with code enforcement type issues.
So it could be anybody that's already on the Board of Adjustments.
No.
We're gonna have to have a chair, so 3 to 4 is always a good number, just to
You don't want to
have
go
it.
more than that. You get more than that, then you start having all kinds of problems.
So 3 plus a chair?
I would say that would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would do an odd number.
We know the chair.
And then, so I guess if there was 3, as so long as they have a quorum, then, or no, not a quorum, if they have everybody present, then there wouldn't be a tie, and that 4th person would be a tiebreaker. But if one person's missing,
Right,
Yeah,
then
You
that,
gotta be careful who you pick then.
yeah, you sure
Yeah.
do.
so do you want to add more people to it?
I wouldn't, I'd still go with 3.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's hard to find people that are willing to serve on these. We have one. We have a chair.
He's the chairman.
Oh, dear God.
You may want to think about that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
So,
thinking like this issue.
okay, so, then we could potentially even have a first reading of this then by the next meeting.
So let's clarify what we're having a first reading of, just so I'm clear on what I'm to draft. Make sure council's okay with it. The way I would envision this ordinance is we would be adopting KRS 99.700, which allows us to follow the KRS blighted property. We would establish this commission, and we would set any other additional requirements for blighted properties that we would want to set. So basically, we would just then have the tool to use if we chose to.
So we can add on to that, but can't take anything off, is that correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
That keeps us within the limits we need.
Okay, okay, good. Wait, now, one,
Yeah, is 2 weeks enough time to pull all that together?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
one more, kind of on the whole property issue, one more thing I'd like to add on. I know we've got a representative from Arlinghouse Heating and Air here in the audience. One of the items that came up recently was surplusing the property on the extension of Houston Road. You know, on the left side there is, when we talked about it, it sounded like everybody was kind of in agreement of surplusing that property, but we haven't moved forward to actually do that.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, right.
Okay,
So
Property on the left? Right?
yeah.
Going down?
right. I mean, correct,
Left.
on the left.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
Who's on second?
I would like to, you know, if I can get, you know, head nods here, or if we want to talk about it, to move forward with surplusing that property. And I think that that's the first step, and I think the way we would like to treat it is kind of like what Mr. Fields was mentioning earlier, is it's going to have to go out to the public to bid on it. And I think at that time we would, I'm even foreseeing kind of saying like, let's request a, what am I trying to say?
Request for proposal, I think, yeah, an
Request
RFP.
for
Put
proposal.
an RFP out. We had talked about this before, taking our surplus property, offering it out there on our websites, and requesting proposals. So seeing what people propose to do with the property. So if in fact it was, you know, a company that's already existing, they want to build a new facility or whatever, they would say, you know, this is our plan for that, and this is our bid, you know, on that piece of property. Then it comes back here, and we decide what the best use of that property is, you know, and looking at all those things together with not just price, but if somebody comes in and says, well, you know, I'm going to build apartment complex here, or I'm going to build single family here, because we've got some lots in residential areas, you know, that we can do the very same thing with. You know, that way we have just a tad bit of control over, you know, what gets done. And that's exactly what Covington is doing. When Mr. Francis was talking about Covington's whole thing, they have a list of people, of developers, and those developers say what they're going to do with that property. And, you know, and I think Covington's goal is to purchase 60 properties a year. Wow. And that's a huge undertaking. But you got to think about the properties that they're purchasing. Those properties they're purchasing are probably $3,000 to $5,000, you know, in that range all the time. So it's a little different situation. And then those developers are on that list. They say, yeah, we're interested in this one, and this is what we're going to do with it. That's how they have done like whole streets and things. And I know Cincinnati.
The properties that we own, are they on the website for sale?
No, ma'am. We've not done anything with them. That's why when we said this before, you know, what do we do with those?
Okay.
You know, we talked in particular last time about the property that was down on Pleasure Isle Drive and got some direction from you all about what it is, you know, would we go ahead and purchase this property and then sell it to the two neighbors? Go ahead with the, you know, it's that vacant lot down there that's being used as a dump right now.
Yeah.
Well, lo and behold, that fell through because I can't remember exactly what the attorneys told me, but there was some other issue that came up with that, so we couldn't move forward with that. There's something else. We're moving forward with it, but it's been delayed because of something. I can't remember what it is, but that's what we would like to do is put all those properties up, especially those ones that we have in industrial or commercial type zones. And Mr. Hahn and I have been talking about that for quite a while, so we can get that up as long as you all surplus that property. And I don't think only that property. You know, I think all the other property that we have too, McAlpin and Dixie, Woodward and all that, but I know we want to get moving forward on this one, so we could have that list.
Yeah.
We could have a list ready for you all next meeting and get the surplus the same way we do with municipal orders, right, all the time.
Especially since there's someone that's interested in the property, I think this is a good chance for us to try the process and see how it works and see how we like it, and then we can open it up to other properties as well. Dan, did you have anything you wanted to say? You've been very patient.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody has any questions for me.
Would you mind coming up to the mic and introducing yourself?
area, our client base is primarily within 5 miles of our location right now. You know, we're looking at opportunities to build or buy. In fact, we looked at the church over there off of Narrows Road, and we're interested in, and I think that would make a great facility for those people like that. Currently, we have 30 employees, 31 employees now. We look to increase that over the next 2 years by probably between 8 and 12 employees. So, you know, we'll have a payroll right now of 31. You know, we hope to have that year 45 soon. We build, you know, we'll be building a building that will fit not right now, but for where we'll be in 5 years.
Okay.
Welcome to Erlanger. I said, welcome to Erlanger.
I like the idea.
Yep. We like the area. Feel like from an access to the interstate would be good for us. On traffic coming out. Those vehicles go up and down, Commonwealth, Stevenson, and whatnot. That promotes our business and is good for our business. But, you know, we're involved in the community in a lot of different events and sponsorships, whether it's St. Henry sponsoring, numerous events with the programs that they have. So we're just not here to. We're ingrained with the community, with Ellesmere, with Erlanger, with Edgewood.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Cooler place. All right.
All right, any other surprises? Any other surprises?
No,
How about Cherry Hill Cherry Hill?
Well, I believe Mr. Collins was sitting here, and he left.
Can I talk
So-
can I talk on his behalf?
Absolutely.
Just a second. Like the gentleman on Commonwealth's got a compassion for Commonwealth Avenue. Brian and I know each other for over 50 years. We grew up together in Cherry Hill. We moved out in Cherry Hill probably before half the subdivision was completed. They had a swim club out there. We swam on a swim team together. Well, you all don't know this or not, but we had a band together. We played the band together, him and I and 2 other guys, when we were little kids. No, we never played the roundup. But anyway, his compassion was when he found out, he moved out of the area, and when he found out that Cherry Hill was closed down and was a dump, he went over and saw the swim club. Well, he didn't like it. So he ended up going around trying to find out, and he bought it. And whether you all been over there or not, he put a lot of money in that place and got it back open and got members.
Yeah.
Now, Cherry Hill is completed with about 500 residents, which half of them are from Erlanger. What Brian's trying to do is got an opportunity to take that wooded area between St. Henry and into Cherry Hill next to the swim club to take that and complete a playground in there. We have nothing to offer our citizens over in Cherry Hill a playground. So the only playground that was ever over there was a little blacktop basketball court behind the swim club. And in wintertime, they put a hump around it and filled up with water, and that was our ice skating rink. So we could, you had to come into Erlanger to go to the playgrounds and go to any of the pond or anything, the ice skate, unless you went down on the creek. You weren't allowed to go down.
Is that Erlanger or Boone County?
It's
That's
Boone
Boone
County
County.
and Erlanger.
I mean, where the park would be.
The park would be in
Boone
Erlanger
County.
and Boone County.
Well, the park would
on
be
the
in Boone
map-
County.
Well, it'd be Boone County, but what it would be,
It's all gonna be in Boone County.
It would support the Erlanger residents to live out there.
If you-
We have
Like the
nothing-
Lions Club, huh, Jay?
If you look at this map, this Google printout that I gave you, if you see Apple Tree Lane at the very top in the right-hand corner as you're looking at it, you'll see Apple Tree. You can see the line, because the dark blacktop, that's Erlanger. The light blacktop, that's Boone County. Now that line comes straight down, and everything that you see in that next little cul-de-sac there, that's Mimosa Court. Everything on Mimosa is in Erlanger. So that line goes this way. You look at Cypress. Everything but that very first house there on Cypress is in Erlanger. So that line runs right there, so you can see how close the Cherry Hill Swim Club is to the line. So if you look at that, this is actually a baseball field now, where the dirt is, that's St. Henry's. And that's actually a baseball field now, so Google Maps did a pretty old shot of this. Okay, but what we're talking about is if you're coming down here to where Peachtree is in the swim club, it's that corner right there. So, you know, we're within, what, 150 yards, 100 yards of the city limits. I just wanted to show you all where it was so you had a pretty good idea about how close it was. Every bit of new construction that's been done in Cherry Hill is in the city of Erlanger.
Yeah.
All the new streets, as a matter of Greg Engelman's daughter built a new house out there. That's where she lives. All the new construction is there. And like Mr. Dunhoff said, there's nothing out there. And the only thing that we've ever talked about doing was taking some of that land to down low and lower Erlanger Road and creating maybe walking trails and doing some of that, because we just don't have any available land in Kenton County or in Erlanger to build a park for that area. So.
Are you talking to Boone County?
Well, he's talking
Yeah,
to Boone County.
and what?
What they want us to do is, they want us to go in half with them to do a study, to see even if it's feasible to do what they want to do with the playground there, because the way the water system and the drainage is and everything there. So for us to join in with Boone County on that adventure, I think would really help us in the long run down the road if they ask us to do something again, because we butt up against Boone County and Florence a lot. They do the same with us. I'm all in favor of this venture.
How much?
They're saying they want to do $10,000 for the study, and they'll put in $5,000 if we'll put in $5,000. And they want to hire a firm like Mr. Viox's firm or somebody to see engineering-wise if it's even feasible to do it.
Right.
Now, the question came up the last time we talked about it, valid question. You know, what do we do from there then? Are we going to be committed to building the park? Are we going to be committed to running the park later on? You know, what is all that? So we haven't had those discussions. And so I can't give you any recommendation about where that's going to go, because I've not had any conversations with Boone County about that, simply because the whole thing is just really hypothetical at this point in time, because, you know, there's some, and Mr. Viox knows very well what kind of drain pipes are down through there. There's like a 4-foot drain pipe that runs down through this, that runs all the way to the creek, and maybe runs all, and there's actually an exposed sewer line that's up above. You know, that they would have to bury and do some things, so it runs through that gully there, culvert there, whatever that is. So, you know, whether or not this can even be done
I can run
is
Jim over
what I'm
tonight,
saying.
he can let you know tomorrow.
You know, I got to do a report by 9 o'clock in the morning. He might as well have to do the other one, right?
9 a.m.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, how close is this to St. Henry?
It's right there. If you look at that, as a matter of fact, St. Henry owns it.
Well, would St. Henry maybe want to get involved?
They're donating the land.
St. Henry's donating the land.
Okay.
That's going to be their involvement. They said that they would, yeah. And he had to work an awful long time to get the diocese to agree to that, I believe, to donate the land.
This is going to be a $5,000 investment. That's what we determined. That's the maximum that would be involved with our investment.
Right, we're not going to
That's
commit
only-
anything
that's
else
it.
about building the park.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that there's not going to be, I mean, why would they come to us
For
to
the
spend
study.
$5,000 for a study if
For
they're
the
not going to
study.
ask for, you know, money to split the cost of building the park?
You know, I serve on the Northern Kentucky Health District Board with one of the commissioners from Boone County, and we happened to be sitting next to each other in the last meeting. We began talking about this, Charles Kenner, and he had mentioned that their interest is only to have help in the study, and that they don't expect Erlanger to have any part of the cost of improving the property or building the playground or maintaining it. He said flat out, he said, we do not expect that, we don't want that, we just want your involvement in doing the study.